Does the Bible indicate exactly when the fall of man happened? Well, no, not exactly. The Bible only gives us a certain amount of information regarding this question. But in the book of Genesis, there are some clear indications, we could say, that we can use to get a pretty good idea about the timing of the fall. So we're going to walk through some relevant verses to answer this. Just think about them. So looking back at the creation week, Adam and Eve couldn't have sinned on day 1 to 5 or on day 6, the day Adam and Eve were created, since at the end of that day, God declared that everything He'd created was very good. I mean, otherwise sin would be very good. So day 7 is also unlikely because since God sanctified that. So the fall likely happened soon after this, and there's a really strong clue as to why that is we're going to get to when we get to look at Genesis 1:28. But before this, in Genesis 3, Adam and Eve sinned and were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And this happened prior to conceiving their first child named Cain, because Eve wasn't pregnant when the fall happened. Now, even if you want to say, well, yeah, maybe Adam and Eve waited a long time to have kids, so to speak, Genesis 5:3 indicates that Adam had Seth at age 130, and Genesis 4:25 indicates this took place after Cain killed Abel, so they had at least 3 children by this time. Cain, Cain's wife, and Abel. Since Cain and Abel were old enough to work with crops and herds, the maximum time for the fall would have to be much less than 130 years. So, okay, we're getting closer to an answer here, but here's the strongest clue in Genesis 1:28. God commanded Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply. Now, these are 2 healthy people living in a world without sin who want to obey God. And if they'd waited too long, they would have been sinning against God. So, they wouldn't have been fruitful. Also, since they were created with perfect bodies, we're assuming it wouldn't have taken long for Eve to conceive. So the time between creation and the fall must have been pretty short based on what we know about the female cycle, etc. Saying that it might have been different in the past, well, it's just kind of conjecture. We really can't know, so we just have to go with what we do know, what the Bible says. So now some people have said that the fall couldn't have occurred so early because Adam walked with God in the garden. This supposedly suggests this intimate relationship between Adam and his creator that could only be developed over a long time. However, contrary to what many believe, the Bible actually doesn't say that. Adam walked with God in the garden. Although this is what a lot of people have taught, it isn't actually found in Scripture. Adam and Eve were hiding because of their sin when they heard the sound of the Lord walking in the garden. That's the way the Scripture describes it. And note that this is after sin has come into the world. And I mean, even if God did walk in the garden with them prior to the fall, jumping from walking with Adam to taking a long time to have an intimate relationship with him is just kind of leaps in logic that aren't founded in Scripture. Many times that people say these types of things, they seem to be trying to fit long periods of time into the Bible for no reason. I've had a lot of people at conferences ask me why Adam and Eve couldn't have been in the garden for millions of years before the fall happened. Always trying to fit those millions of years in there. But, if those millions of years happened and the evidence of millions of years comes from the idea that rock layers take a long time to lay down and there are dead things, fossils in those layers, then you're saying that Adam and Eve were living in a world full of death before the fall that was there before Adam's sin. So, again, the idea that Adam and God must have walked together in the garden for a long time prior to this, it's just purely conjecture. But does the Bible indicate exactly when the fall of man happened? No, we can't be certain of the exact date or length of time because of the points we discussed, but it definitely wasn't a long time period after creation.